Before I bless you guys with today's content, I gotta give a shout out to my homie baby Kev Mac. Today, we're gonna profile Bartender from Lueders Park, Piru in Compton.
Was it. I never stopped banging. I started banging hard, then I got so hard till it was a shame.
Lyles Joseph Thomas was born February 14th, 1955. He had an older sister born in 1946 and a younger brother born in 1956. His mom was born in Santa Clara County in California in 1930. Bartender's mom, Shirley, got married in 1958. That's when they moved to 8202 South McKinley Avenue on the east side of Los Angeles. That's 2 blocks away from Avalon Gardens and a couple blocks from Fremont High School. In 1962, Bartender and his family made their first move to Compton, landing on North Maple Street, not too far from Gonzalez Park. In 1969, they moved to 1602 North Pearl Avenue in the city of Compton.
Our side of Compton, they had no game.
Bartender and his family lived within a close walking distance of Oaks Park, the park he grew up in the 1960s and early 1970s. Joey also lived a half a mile from the Red House, in which Bob Simmons would open in Compton in 1973 on Santa Fe and Pine. The Red House will become known for housing one of the biggest names and faces in the history of the Crips, Stanley Tookie Williams. Tookie's pure presence alone brought Crips from all over Los Angeles to visit him in Compton. Bob Simmons had opened up a boys' home at this location for troubled youth in the city of Compton. He had 2 locations, the Red House, which was on Santa Fe and Pine, and just a short walk right through the alley leads you to Oaks Park, where Bartender hung out at. And the other was located on Atlantic and Alondra Boulevard. According to A.C. Moses, also known as King Baba Louie, both of these homes became nesting farms for the Crips, and it sprung up 2 gangs, the Oaks Park Crips and the Atlantic Drive Crips. The Red House took in non-Crip members, but according to AC, many of them got turned out and became Crips.
When we started US, we were from Alameda to Atlantic Drive, and from Greenleaf to Rosecrans. Puddingtown, Vincent, we allowed them to have Lueders Park.
We talking about West Side Piru on the east side now.
And the only Crip that was on the east side was brother named Curtis Patrick and Don Norwood.
Curtis Patrick is said to have been original Lueders Park Piru.
They had started a pocket right there for Chris, Oak Park, Santa Fe and Pine.
On February 9th, 1973, Clifford Ray Johnson attended a party on Cookacre Street, located in East Compton, near Rosecrans and Atlantic Avenue. When Ray and 5 others arrived, they were told the party was in the back of the house. As they entered the party, someone said, "Look who's here, it's Piru Ray," and they introduced themselves as Crips. Ray was only 18 years old at the time and described by friends as a nice, quiet guy with a high school reputation, but fearless and never one to run from a fight. The enemy saw him as a gunner and a head honcho, the number one Piru, and a danger to all Crips. As Ray, Crazy Squirrel Johnson, stood there confronted by members of Oaks Park, he stared his old partner, Curtis Patrick, in the eye with disgust. Curtis was once a member of the Lueders Park Pirus and had frequently visited the Johnsons' home while growing up, and was also well known and well liked by Ray's mother, brothers, Little Squirrel and Pee-wee, and his sisters, until an incident happened between both of their sisters that triggered animosity. Curtis switched sides and was now a member of the Oaks Park Crip. Just 3 hours later, on the morning of February 10th, Clifford Ray Johnson died, apparently of stab wounds inflicted in a gang-related assault at the party in Compton.
We were at his mom's house. Miss Johnson lived on Bradfield and Tucker. And I remember getting a call and they were saying Ray had got stabbed at a party. And we went over there and, Ray didn't make it. But.
The alleged suspect in the case was believed to be set free. Tookie wrote in his book that Bob liked to call this the Ponderosa, but to the outside world, it was known as the Red House or the Crip House. After Joey finished high school, he now had to contend with two big names in the area, Donald Duck Norwood of the Oaks Park Businessmen Crips and Stanley Tookie Williams. Bartender would soon find himself hanging out regularly at Lueders Park. Bob published a small Compton newspaper with an article called The Baddest. It featured Buddha, Little James, Warlock, Melvin Hardy, Sweetback, Monk, and Tookie on the cover.
If that poster that you posted on your page, Buddha and Tookie are in the front, Bogard and Warlock are kind of in the back. I'm in the back. Because when I came, they had already set up. I'm there with the beanie on, and Lil James Compton from the 118th Street is right behind me. See, what people don't understand, in the beginning, it was East Side, West Side, and Compton. The Grandies, Wilmington Arms, whatever y'all want to call it, where Big Rebo and Bitter Child and Honcho and them is from. Mac Thomas and them, Boot Hill. See, people don't know nothing about that, but they always want to talk about the beginning.
Bob opened up the Red House in 1973 with two things in mind: money and decreasing gang violence. In order to get the money, he had to make sure the gang violence was down in the city of Compton. He opened up his doors and gave rooms to members of rival factions.
Because if you know, we were inside of those rooms. It was Crips and Bloods. It was a gathering, a drawing of the community of youngsters who would end up in juvenile hall from our lifestyle.
In Tookie's book, Blue Rage Black Redemption, he mentioned some of the Crips that visited: Mad Dog David, Big James, Jamel, Big Curtis, Lurch, Fat Riley, and plenty of others. A regular visit there to drive iron was Little James, commander of the 118th Street Crips.
Porky, Piru Porky, Putin's play brother, he stayed there. And Bob used to tell us all the time that we got to make sure that Porky is protected. If Porky goes with you, you better make sure he comes back, because he's the only thing keeping this Red House here. All right? He was said that the Pirus would come there and just blow the place up if we let anything happen. Oh, wait a minute. We had a bounty hunter staying there, too. I stayed with Took the whole time.
Was it strictly just black kids up in there, or did they have Hispanics in there, too?
I never saw any white boys, no Mexicans in there, ever. Once, never once. Over at the place when Bob went over on Atlantic Drive, they had Mexicans there.
On Monday, June 30th, 1975, Times Magazine published an article titled Portrait of a Gang Leader. It featured Bartender. At the time of this article, the 19-year-old Bartender, admitted to being proud of being shot and proud of his scars, and more proud that he could shrug it off and accept it as part of his lifestyle. His police records and his dossier was full. He had been arrested 11 times on charges that include assault on a police officer, simple assault, strong-arm robbery, and possession of a carbine. However, he never served any jail time. His mom and his stepfather eventually grew tired of his shit and kicked him out the house. According to Times Magazine, Joey worked as a porter at Kaiser Foundation Hospital, making about $121 a week. But his real life belonged to the Pirus. He hung out at Lueders Park with about 150 of his homeboys. Police estimate that about 10 Pirus and Crips had been killed up until this time. Joey is quoted as saying, "Somebody says go do something, and everybody is game for it because they don't want to look like they're scared. At the beginning, when you first start gangbanging, you're scared. But after a while, you can't be. Like myself, I got a lot of people looking for me, and if I clinch up, I wouldn't last at all." A lot of people that knew Joey real well in Compton call him a hustler, but the women, they say he was fine.
I'm telling you, Bartender was a pretty boy. The girls, they liked the Bartender. But like the rest of them, he was no punk. Of course, we had homeboys that was about that life. I don't put him in a category with them like Savage and Volcano and them was beasts. Bartender wasn't no punk. You have homeboys, you might have somebody say, such and such they was about that life, but then you had the ones that that you had to be careful of, know. But Bartender, he was cool. He was a homeboy, and they hung at the house because, of course, we lived across the street from the park.
On December 4th, 1976, Lyles Joseph Thomas was shot and killed during a dance at Dootos.
But Bartender, he was a homeboy. Again, I don't know where he got the name Bartender from because he wasn't making no drinks.
Dootos was located in Westside Piru turf on Central Avenue. Bartender was known for his well-dressed style, his big afro, and being a handsome man. He was supposedly into peace and trying to bring Crips and Bloods together. And with this being in Westside Piru neighborhood, you would think this was a safe zone for Joey, but he was cut down by several shots that were fired in his direction. Also, a 16-year-old unidentified youth was injured. Although not seriously, he was shot in his ass. Investigators on the case initially arrested Leonard Thomas, Joey's brother, shortly after in connection with his brother's murder. But according to Detective Hand, he was to be released after he passed a polygraph test. Bartender's mother said Bartender had quit gangbanging after one of his friends had got killed. "I think he knew he was going to die," his mother said. "We had talked earlier on the day of his death, and I just had a feeling he knew what might happen. I wanted to touch him while he was still warm after he was shot, but doctors wouldn't allow it." Lyles Joseph Thomas died December 4th, 1976. Rest in peace to yet another legend in this deadly culture we call gangbanging.
Anybody listening to this that has ever been incarcerated with me, know I don't care where you come from, because it ain't what you did yesterday, it's what you do today.
This is Los Angeles.